In the Egyptian history of the New Kingdom period, there is one particular prince who, in many ways, is remarkably similar to the biblical account of Moses. For reference, the New Kingdom, also called the Egyptian Empire, is the era of the highest heyday of ancient Egyptian statehood in 1550 to 1069 BC, known for the largest number of monuments that are the basis of the entire heritage of the civilization of the pharaohs. The biblical chronology relates the exodus of the Jews from Egypt to the 15th century BC. Israel's entry into Canaan occurred in 1406 BC. In the Amarna letters, dating from the 16th century BC, the Canaanite leaders described the invasion of a people called the Hebrew, that is, the Jews, who seized all the lands. For reference, the Amarna letters, or Amarna tablets, are diplomatic correspondence between the Egyptian administration and its representatives in Canaan and Amurru. They cover a period of no more than 30 years between 1360 and 1332 BC. The letters were found in Upper Egypt in El-Amarna, the modern name of the ancient Egyptian capital Akhetaten, founded by Pharaoh Amenhotep IV, who reigned in 1350 to 1330 BC. Let's update the order of the pharaohs, under which significant events occurred for the Jews. Under Amenhotep IV, Israel entered the Promised Land. Under Amenhotep III, Israel traveled through the desert. Under Amenhotep II, the Israelites left Egypt. Moses fled to the desert when Egypt was ruled by the father of Amenhotep II, Thutmose III. Thutmose III's stepmother, Queen Hatshepsut, later became a female pharaoh. She is the adoptive mother of Moses, the prince of Egypt. Moses lived 120 years, and his life was divided into 3 equal parts. He was the prince of Egypt for 40 years, was in exile in Midian with his father-in-law Jethro for 40 years, and has been the leader of Israel for the last 40 years. Moses died shortly before the Israelites entered the Promised Land. If we apply this detail to the date of Israel's entry into Canaan about 1406 year BC, Moses falls about 1526 year BC. At that time, Thutmose I was the pharaoh. From this pharaoh, Hatshepsut's daughter born from his great royal wife Yamos and Thutmose's son born from his other wife Mutnofre were born. Thutmose I forced his 18-year-old son to marry his 24-year-old half-sister. In marriage with the concubine Iset, Thutmose II had an heir, Thutmose III. Thutmose III was only 2 years old when his father died. His stepmother Hatshepsut was co-ruler of Egypt for 22 years. Hatshepsut's activities were devoted to peaceful enterprises. One of the inscriptions on the facade of her temple in Speos Artemidos reads, "My spirit has bowed to foreigners. The people of Roshau and Yiwu did not hide from me." Another inscription describes Hatshepsut as a heart full of love. These unusual feelings are in good agreement with the biblical description of the pharaoh's daughter, who brings up a foreign child and elevates him to the rank of a prince. Egyptian records show that this man was clearly not of royal lineage. However, by the end of his life in Egypt, before his mysterious disappearance in about 1480 BC, he rose to the highest levels of Egyptian society. This prince is usually called Senenmuth or Senmuth. Research journalist Scott Allen Roberts identifies this man as Moses. The same opinion is shared by the Italian scientist Egyptologist Antonio Crasto. Senenmut's royal appointments were as follows: the chief steward, who conducted all the affairs of the king's confidant, the privy councillor of the right hand, the chief steward of Princess Neferu, the daughter of Hatshepsut. Senenmuth's non-royal origin is widely known. His parents did not bear royal titles, and his father, who died before Senenmuth achieved significant power, was buried very simply. Senenmuth participated in military campaigns in the country of Kush, Ethiopia, during the reign of Thutmose I. For those who are familiar with the classic stories of Moses' life, this is important, because although his exploits in Ethiopia are not mentioned in the Bible, they are described in detail by some classical historians. Josephus devoted an entire chapter of Jewish antiquities to the military exploits of Moses in Ethiopia. A similar account is contained in the Jewish historian of the 3rd century BC Artapon. The clearest evidence of how incredibly close Senenmuth and Hatshepsut were is the relationship between Senenmuth and Hatshepsut's daughter, Neferu, whom he took care of. Several statues depict the young princess Neferu sitting on his lap. Senenmuth had no children, which meant that there were no future generations who could support his funeral cult. Senenmuth was the royal architect who oversaw the construction of the Hatshepsut tomb complex in Deir el-Bahri. This complex, built against the backdrop of a cliff, remains one of the real wonders of the ancient world, known for its architectural proportionality and perfection. It consists of a large courtyard complex with columns centered around the inner sanctuary of Jeser-Jeseru. For reference, Jeser-Jeseru, that is, the Holy of Holies, the funeral temple of Hatshepsut, erected at the beginning in Upper Egypt at the cliffs of Deir el-Bahri on the west bank of the Nile, next to the Valley of the Kings. Jeser-Jeseru is a masterpiece of ancient Egyptian architecture. Senenmuth, as a senior member of the Egyptian administration, built his own complex of 2 tombs. These tombs contain several interesting and unique elements, such as a detailed star map on the ceiling, the earliest star map ever discovered in Egypt, which suggests that Senenmuth was also an astronomer. But Senenmuth was never buried in his tomb. His tombs were not even finished, but on the contrary, were prematurely closed. Senenmuth, for some reason, completely disappeared without a trace. Senenmuth's sudden disappearance has been a mystery to Egyptologists for decades. The standard high chronology, according to which the beginning of the reign of Hatshepsut and Thutmose III falls on 1504th year BC, refers the last mention of Senenmuth to about 1486th year BC, that is, to the 40th year of the life of the biblical Moses. After the disappearance of Senenmuth, many of his monuments and inscriptions were deliberately erased, a curse of memory. The same fate befell the monuments of Hatshepsut. However, the memory erasure was not completely complete. Several statues of Senenmuth and inscriptions have been preserved. One of them says, "The ruler Senenmuth, who came out of the flood and was given flooding so that he could control it, even the Nile." Comparing the life of the ruler of Senenmuth and the prophet Moses, it can be said with a high degree of confidence that they are the same person.